like.
Now, I figured you'd like that one. All
Are
right.
you doing Bob's show tomorrow night?
As far as I know.
I
Um,
forgot I had committed to it because I had also committed to do the Gene's show tomorrow night too. And I saw Bob's post this morning. I went, oh shit. I texted Gene. I said, hey, what time is your show tomorrow night? He said 9. I said, cool, we're good.
well, good. You just announced that on air. Good deal. I'd already started the show on you. Yeah, we should be committed around here. Welcome, boys and girls, to Game Week. It's now that fake football's over with. We're now on to the regular season, first game of the regular season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or Succaneers, or however you want to call them. I can't rip them. Buck, what you heard, team, David Harrison's team, all good guys, but it's all in fun. It's our first game of the season, our first divisional game, and we are going for our first home opener win since 2013. That's unbelievable. I heard that the other day, and I just could not believe. But if you think about the past 4 seasons, what's gone on,
and you remember who that win was against?
in 2013, opening day.
Yep.
We went to Tampa in week 2. Oh, Atlanta. I was at that game. How could I forget? Yeah.
Kenny Vaccaro's pick in the end zone.
Yep. You're right. Yeah, we opened against Atlanta in Atlanta. And I remember, because we had 2 Falcon fans sitting in front of us. And I kept giving him shit. I kept telling him, I said, Matt Ryan's going to choke. He's going to choke and blow this game. It. And guy just kept lowering his head like, no, it's not going to happen this time. I said, oh, yeah, that's his reputation. He's going to choke this game away. And sure enough, he did. This week 2 was Tampa. I do remember that one too. So now we're on to game week and preseason's over with. We got our final 53 for today. We've had, as expected, 2 or 3 moves since the final roster cut down on Saturday. And we'll probably see more moves, and we'll talk about a couple of those. One's not really that unexpected. The other one sort of was. We'll talk about that with the final cut down. And I think we acquired some quarterback somewhere. I think somehow, like the day after we did the show, the day after I said, oh, that talk's over with. It was all agent created. We won't pull the trigger.
I didn't know if it was speculation or rumor, but yeah, I heard we might have picked up a backup in the days since we talked last.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, let me pay the bills real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our show. We want to invite you guys to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube at Under the Dome. We invite all you guys' input via our Facebook page at Under the Dome Podcast on Facebook, on Twitter at Under the Dome PO1. As long as you don't make it personal, we're good. I had to throw that in there because, and for all those people that thought that all this time we have waited and we have been promoting it and we have been talking about it endlessly all this entire off season. Anybody that thinks that we're here to talk about an ad campaign for a shoe company is sorely mistaken. We're not going down that road. We're here to talk about opening week Saints football, the 53-man roster, the trade. But we're going to get to that momentarily. First and foremost, to all, I want to say that our thoughts and prayers are going out to all of the Saints fans in the line of fire, so to speak, the storm that appears to be moving in on us right now. You guys stay safe. Check in with us when you get the opportunity. A better day is coming, and I think that that day is going to be Sunday. Anyway, getting on with our business. Oh, by the way, one more thing, real quick. Saturday night, a special 7 p.m. start time. We will be doing our third season kickoff special. We still hadn't come up with a cool tagline for it, but we're efforting that as we speak. Uh, we're going to have a NFC South roundtable, which will be journalists from every team in the NFC South: Bob Rose, Josh Schultz, Cody Latchney, Gene Thomas from Buck What You Heard. But prior to that, in the first half of the show, we will be interviewing former New Orleans Saints middle linebacker Jolon Dunbar. Talked to him this morning. He's anxious to get to meet everyone and hang out with us, and we're really looking forward to that interview. Tomorrow night, both Alan and myself will be. We are very special guests on the other Under the Dome podcast, or we're the other Bayou Blitz podcast. However you want to look at it. Our unofficial third member in his anchor gig at the Bayou Blitz will be doing his season special tomorrow night, along with Tyrone Hughes, I understand, will be on that show as well. Really looking forward to hanging out with Bob and getting everyone ready for 2018. The trade. Wow. How do we approach this? Kind of like you approach a bobcat in a telephone booth. I have seen every possible reaction to this Teddy Bridgewater to the Saints trade, from one end of the spectrum to the other. There's, in my opinion, there's positives, there's negatives. I'm going to let my colleague approach the negative side of it, and then I'll weigh in with what I think. What say you, Mr. Ulrich?
Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about this off the air, and I'll kind of reiterate my points on this. I did not like this trade. I've been opposed to it since I heard about it. And the more I think about it, the less I like it. I understand the mindset for a lot of people, hey, we need to think about the future past Drew Brees. And then you just experienced a Super Bowl where they lost Carson Wentz near the end of the season, and Nick Foles played well enough to win a championship for them. And there have been many, many, many Super Bowls that are won by backup quarterbacks.
Earl Morrell.
Going back to Earl Morrell over there in with the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl V. Earl Morrell again in Super Bowl VII, carried the Dolphins after Bob Greasy broke his leg, and he played all the way to the the second half of the AFC Championship game. Bob Greasy came in at the second half of the AFC Championship game and won the game for the Dolphins so they can go on to the Super Bowl. Even more recently, Vince Ferragamo with the Rams in '79, Jeff Hostetler with the Giants in 1990, Kurt Warner in 2000 was the backup to Trent Green. Trent Green blew his knee out in a preseason game. And no one had ever heard of Kurt Warner before that. The only Kurt Warner they knew was the running back from the Seattle Seahawks in the 80s. Yeah. And then, it just goes on down the list. I mean, even Super Bowl 15, where Jim Plunkett won that Super Bowl, actually Dan Pastorini was the starter for that Super Bowl team, that Raiders team in 1980. Dan Pastorini breaks his leg. They bring Jim Plunkett in, and I'm bringing this one up because this sort of fits the idea behind this Bridgewater trade. Jim Plunkett was considered a bust. It was a wreck career. He was drafted by the New England Patriots. He bombed there. Went to the San Francisco 49ers. He was terrible there. He ends up with the Raiders, and he's playing behind Kenny Stabler. Stabler is traded to the Oilers. The Oilers send over Dan Pastorini in 1980. Pastorini is to take over for Stabler. He breaks his leg. Plunkett comes in, and they had no idea what they were going to get out of him. So I understand that thinking. But here's my thing. You had an opportunity to get Teddy Bridgewater as an undrafted free agent back in March. Okay. I've posted this enough time on different chats, on different Facebook groups about my opinion about Bridgewater and the Vikings letting him go. That's a huge red flag for me. But my point is, if you're the Saints and you're thinking, okay, I don't have a first-round draft choice in 2019. Drew Brees is going to be 40 years old in 2019. We need to start thinking about the future now. Get this guy in March then. Don't screw around with Tom Savage and screw around with Taysom Hill thinking that, okay, I can make it on Savage and Hill will be our future. Because what you're telling me now is you sat there and your evaluation showed that, Savage would be good enough of a backup for you for this year in case something, God forbid, happens to Breeze. You can still win a game or so with Savage. And Taysom Hill's your future. And then you wait till preseason rolls around and go, oh, my God, neither of these guys can play. We better go get somebody right now. Bridgewater's behind the 8 ball right now because Bridgewater missed all the OTAs. He missed training camp. He missed all the offensive installs. All the opportunities you had to evaluate him and see how good of a quarterback he really is for your system. Okay? You got to find this out now through the regular season where he doesn't have the opportunity to take the snaps. He doesn't have the opportunity to get the timing down with the receivers because Drew Brees takes almost all the snaps in practice. Bridgewater will have to run the scout team to help out and get his physical reps in. What he has to do now is he has to cram, learn this verbiage, learn this offense, and do what they call mental reps, where he is going to pretend in his head that he is practicing executing this offense and understanding what he is doing. He's going to have to really talk to Breeze a lot in the film room about what he sees and learn the offense through Breeze in that film room. That's a lot of work. And that's a lot of struggle for a guy that shouldn't have happened if he really was going to be your guy. And you should have made that decision back in March. That's what bothers me because we've spent a third-round pick. We sent a third-round pick to the Jets. We spent this on a guy that hopefully never takes a snap. Now, he's under a one-year deal. Let's look at some of the teams that made quarterback moves this year. We talked about the Vikings are obviously going to Kirk Cousins. The Denver Broncos took the Vikings cast off Case Keenum. What if, let's just say the Denver Broncos and John Elway realizes, oh, my God, Keenum is who we thought he was going to be. And we gave this guy a bunch of money and he stinks. He cannot win games for us. We need a starting quarterback now. And lo and behold, Teddy Bridgewater's contract comes up. Now, the Saints, if they're smart, aren't going to make an offer to Bridgewater right now because you don't want to overpay a guy. But at the same time, you're going to risk putting him out there. And a team like the Denver Broncos, I'm just giving a scenario, the Denver Broncos comes along and says, you know what, we're going to pay you to be our starter. We're going to give you a bunch of money to be our starter. We can't afford that, not with Drew Brees on the roster. So something's going to have to happen there. Now, I know this is going to all sorts of different scenarios and things like that, and people just want to focus on, hey, man, let's just get through this season and see what happens come February. We'll play with it then. But that is why I hate the trade, because it's short-term thinking. It's not long-term repercussions behind this trade. Yes, you probably can't get a quarterback as good as Bridgewater with a third-round pick. However, if he doesn't make the roster, then you've wasted a third-round pick. And these are the kind of players we got in the third round since 2010. Jimmy Graham, Alvin Kamara, Akeem Hicks. This year's Traquan Smith. We got Alex Anzalone. We got Trey Hendrickson all in this past draft in 2017. You've gotten a lot of players in that third round. We have found some good round. We got a sixth round pick. Okay, let me give you a rundown throughout from 1967, when they had 17 rounds, to 2017. Let me run down the list of impact or good sixth round picks this team has made. Fred McAfee. That's it.
Wow.
Sixth round is the worst round in Saints draft history. You can go look it up online. You go find somebody better than Fred McAfee. Go find somebody who actually mattered more than a season or so in the sixth round. And we've got 2 sixth-round picks.
Well, the thing is, you look, and I realize that the sixth round is blatantly obvious, but you look at the difference in the quality or the readiness or whatever you want to call it of the player from just the second round to the third round. Now, you magnify that by 2. That's what you're getting, the drop off in the ability of the. Now, obviously, there's no certains in the draft process because there's no way of guessing just exactly how the player is going to embrace their opportunity. The human factor is a huge part of that equation, and there's no way to properly gauge that. I get that. But, I mean, every once in a while, you're going to have that Tom Brady that slips through the first several rounds and drops towards the bottom and turns out to be. But how many Tom Bradys have you seen in the past 20 years?
Joe Montana was a third-round draft pick, just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quite say that I don't like the trade. And my reason is this. A lot of people, their initial knee-jerk reaction to this Teddy Bridgewater trade was, oh, God, now we have the heir apparent to Drew Brees. And I don't look at it that way. I don't see it that way at all. To me, my initial gut reaction to that move was a visual image of Sean Payton sitting at the table, pushing all of his poker chips into the middle of the table, saying, I'm all in on this being a Super Bowl run this year. And that being said, I watched Tom Savage. Tom Savage improved from the Jacksonville game to the San Diego game because he didn't play in the last game.
Yeah.
And poor JT Barrett, man, I sat there and watched him. Teddy Bridgewater is standing behind him on the sidelines, and he's got to be leaning up there saying, "Man, hey, you need to ease on to the practice squad room. You got my number and you got my position."
Yeah.
I felt, and every time the camera panned over there and showed JT Barrett, he looked like the most depressed man in the Superdome.
Mm-hmm.
But I make light of it. JT Barrett is not ready to be an NFL quarterback, and I don't think that I'm being at all off base by saying that. But at the same time, I'm going to say Taysom Hill is not ready to be an NFL quarterback. Now, the improvement of Taysom Hill from that Jacksonville preseason game up till that Rams game has been beyond significant. I see him doing things that he wasn't doing. I see him picking up on things that he wasn't picking up on. Uh, he has vastly improved his skill set by getting those live reps against a lot. He is not ready to go up against Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald standing there breathing down his neck on that defensive line. He's just, and there's no shame in that. But, the amazing thing for the New Orleans Saints is you paid a special teams player and you got a backup quarterback for free.
Yeah.
And in my mind, right now, that is the reality for a Taysom Hill. He is a special teams standout that, in a pinch, he can run the RPO and get you a first down, maybe get you a touchdown. He is not an every down quarterback. He is not a starting quarterback at this level. And I that is not a personal attack on Taysom Hill. The reason that we get paid the big bucks is to shoot to you straight. Yeah, my check has been lost in the mail.
You get paid, not me.
My check has been lost in the mail apparently for a couple of years now. But anyway, he's not to that level yet. I'm sorry. Anybody that offends, I apologize for offending you. I'm not going to apologize for not blowing smoke up your behind and lying to you.
Well, here's the thing.
We had to improve the backup quarterback position. Yeah. And if everybody, I've heard all these people say, well, why did we need to improve the backup quarterback? We got Drew Brees. Well, you've got a 39-year-old quarterback. I want, just as a means of comparison, look back on the player that a lot of people well, maybe not a lot, but some people hold in the highest regard, especially given the location of New Orleans, Peyton Manning. He started this season being a top 5 quarterback, and when the end came, it came harshly and it came quickly. When Drew Brees is old enough that, if it happens, it happens. And Father Time is undefeated. We needed to improve the backup quarterback position, not because Drew Brees is suspect, but because Drew Brees is 39 years old in a young man's game. And getting back to my original point, forgive me for being long-winded, but my original point, we improved the backup quarterback position. I do like that. Much like Alan said, I'm not real crazy about the fact that going into the as of right now, going into the draft in the spring, we have one pick in the first 2 days of the draft. Now, as it was pointed out to me yesterday by one of our colleagues, you've got Davenport, you've got Lattimore, you've got Kamara, you've got Traquan Smith, you've got Michael Thomas. You don't have that many holes to fill. Well, you don't want to stand pat, because every time you sit there and you say, I'm good, there's going to be 3/4 of the rest of the league that is sitting there licking their chops saying, okay, you don't want the opportunity to improve, we'll take it. Look at Chicago.
Okay.
I saw the meme today of the Chucky doll sitting there with
Ah,
the
okay.
infinity glove.
I was wondering where the hell you were going with this.
The Chucky doll sitting there with the infinity glove and said, and just like that, the Raiders' defense was gone. Uh,
Yeah.
eh,
That
Marvel
that
geeks will
trade,
get that.
yes, that trade. Actually, I'm not losing my mind over that trade like some people are because it's a standard MO for new head coaches. They want their people in there, so they're gonna. I don't think he got enough for him, but he's going
I
to trade
don't.
him from. He's going to
I
trade. He's going to trade players that don't buy into the program for draft picks, and he's going to get his people in there.
exactly. I just outside looking in, and I don't even pretend to have intimate knowledge of that situation. What it looked like to me was Khalil Mack said, "I want to get paid."
Mm-hmm.
Gruden said, "I'm not going to pay you. Uh, you can play, and we'll discuss it later." Khalil Mack says, "I ain't playing if you don't pay me."
Mm-hmm.
And Gruden said, "This is my first year back here. You're not going to bully me. I will send you somewhere else." So Max sits
It's a
out.
mess.
Gruden feels like his hand
It's
is
a
forced.
mess.
Yeah, exactly. Gruden has to send a
It's the
message.
team. I'm the sheriff. It's my team.
And
You know.
if you doubt that, look at the fact that he didn't trade him to anybody that he had to play this year.
Yep. Yep.
Now, I
Hey.
seriously take
I,
issue and doubt the mental balance of the Chicago Bears paying that much. But hey, who
hey,
am I?
when you got a rookie quarterback, Trubisky, and you don't have to pay him franchise money yet, you're going to take a chance like that. And Trubisky sucks. You're going to have to go and find you another quarterback. But
Yeah, but if
I mean,
I'm
that's
paying that much to Khalil
yeah.
Mack, he better be able to run, block, and throw a pass every now and then if I need it, and kick extra
You're gonna build
points
that
too.
team. Yeah, you're gonna build your team defense first in this case. That you just made that
Yeah.
statement.
I,
It
the
defense.
only hesitation that I had towards the deal was that Chicago, their talent on defense is mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Now they'll have this player that stands out this week, this player that stands out this week. Uh, they don't have a consistently excellent player to pair with Khalil Mack. And the point I'm trying to make with that is the obviously you're paying him more than anybody has ever been paid in the league. Blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. The expectation level is going to be way up here for him to magically transform that defense, and that's not being very realistic.
He's got to be Reggie White. He's got to be
Yeah,
Reggie White for that defense, like Reggie White was when he got to the Packers. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on him to produce, and I know a lot of people here would have liked the Saints to have made that move. Say overtaking Davenport. Even again, you couldn't afford that kind of salary. If you've got a franchise quarterback, if you've got players like Michael Thomas who get paid soon, you're going to get Alvin Kamara probably paid. You're going to pay some of these other players. Make a lot more financial sense to take and spend your draft picks to get a rookie and let the rookie make the money on a rookie salary cap rather than go out there and get a quote unquote proven player to come in and you got to pay him a ton of money. It's a business decision, not so much a talent decision. I'm not disputing Khalil Mack's talent, and I don't think you are either, but it's a question of you can't make that kind of move if you've got good players already on your team who are going to be looking for money. The Bears don't have that issue right now.
yeah.
The Bears have a lot of mediocre talent, like you said, and they've got rookies that are trying to build a team, so they can afford to give a guy that kind of money, to be a quarterback kind of money at that point. And yeah, and the same thing I was saying with Gruden. What you were saying with Gruden. Gruden is making a statement. This is my team. I'm the boss. You don't like it? Get the hell out. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your resume says. If you're not buying the program, I'll ship you out of here. And that's what he's doing right now. And like it or not, I mean, he's looking at this roster, and he's looking at this team going, this is not a Super Bowl ready team, not for me. This is a team I'm going to have to remake a little bit. Now, if he screws it all up and gets lousy players he drafts with all these draft picks, or he doesn't acquire more picks with what he's got to build the team the way he wants with good quality players, then he's like an idiot. He's getting made fun of right now because he gave away Khalil Mack. But he'll get the last laugh if he's like Jimmy Johnson and turns around a bad team into a championship team in 3 or 4 years. But he's got to, it's all now on him to get the right players with these draft picks he's got. And that's the difference between being an idiot and being a genius.
Well, I don't fault Chucky for getting rid of Khalil Mack. I do, but I don't, because it's really arguable, in my opinion, that the closest thing that you had to a superstar certified all-pro player was Khalil Mack.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that the guys couldn't find a middle ground, but it is what it is. Me personally, I think that the Oakland / soon to be Las Vegas Raiders are a train wreck waiting to happen, and
probably
if John Gruden survives long enough to see Las Vegas, I think that'll be a small miracle in and of itself. That's just my take on it.
He'll make it to Las Vegas because he's going to sell tickets, but he's if he screws it up, I mean, he set this franchise back decades. But but that's the challenge you make with all trades. I mean, this is the thing we were talking about, even going back to the Teddy Bridgewater situation. You're taking a calculated risk, okay? Could Tom Savage win a game for the Saints if he had to start? Probably. He probably could.
Sure.
Could he win 3 or 4 games? Probably not. Could Taysom Hill win a game for you if he had to come in? If Drew Brees got hurt, say in the second quarter, and he had to finish the game? Probably. Could he win several games he had to start? Probably not. In fact, I know he couldn't.
No.
Teddy Bridgewater at least gives you that opportunity, so it's worth the risk, like you said, from that standpoint, because Bridgewater has at least started games. He did go 11-5. Granted, he went as a game manager, and we expect our quarterback in this offense to do a lot more than just manage the game. But until he got comfortable, he could probably cobble together some wins. I don't know if he could beat Philadelphia. I don't know if he could beat Los Angeles. I don't know if he could beat Atlanta. But he could probably cobble enough wins together to beat a Tampa Bay, beat a Carolina, beat Washington, Cincinnati. He could probably cobble some stuff together to do that. Is he going to win a Super Bowl if he had to come in? Probably not. But, you have a better chance to win with Bridgewater. Again, my issue, though, is you burnt a draft pick for it. So you lost an opportunity to get a good player. Whether you got one or not, and this is the same thing with the Raiders, what we were just talking about, you had that opportunity. By having that draft pick, you have an opportunity to improve your team. You now don't have that opportunity. So now you have to make Bridgewater work. And that's the danger you have all the time when you make these trades. The Bears have to make Khalil Mack work. If he doesn't work for this team, Ryan Pace is going to get fired. He's going to get run out of town because he sold the franchise for a player that should work. He produced in Oakland. But if he doesn't produce in Chicago because the talent around him isn't good enough, and he's got all these other expectations, got 141 million reasons why he's got to produce. If he doesn't produce, he's an idiot. He's got to go. Gruden, if he trades, since he traded away Mac, if he gets nothing for those draft picks or he drafts bums, he's got to go. That's the danger you run into all the time. So, yeah, that's why I always cringe at trades, because on the one hand, to me, you have, say, like the Jimmy Graham trade where you got a player but a bust, and the Seahawks lost a player and got a guy they didn't know what to do with. So it really was a bad trade for them. It was a wash for us because we traded a tight end for a center, but we got a bust first-round pick. But if you look at the Brandon Cooks trade, that was a plus for us because we traded Cooks away, got a starting right tackle, and the Patriots shipped Cooks off the following year. So they got nothing really for that. They got a rental for a year. A first-round pick costs – a rental was a first-round pick. You know, I'm not saying you often get one over on Bill Belichick, but you kind of got one over on him with that pick, with that trade. So that's how you have to look at trades. You have to see both sides and how both sides how they deal with that player or that draft pick. What do they do with it?
Let me ask you this. Saturday, it became official when we got down to the 53-man roster. Obviously, we made some moves since then, most notable of which was cutting. Did we cut Stupar or did we trade him?
We cut him, but we cut him yesterday or today.
Yeah.
Today.
And that was the corresponding move with the signing that we made of former Patriot running back Mike Gillislee.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the moves that were made, and we're not going to take the time to go through all of them, the guys that played the 4 preseason games, what was the most shocking either cut of a guy that you watched in these preseason games and you thought, well, this guy made the team, or a guy that stayed on the roster that you thought there was absolutely no way that this guy was going to make it? What was the most shocking one to you?
Surprising would be Jamerson, and to a lesser extent, Jonathan Williams not making the team. And I guess shocking would be JT Gray making the team, only because I can't even recall seeing JT Gray make a single play. I know this has a lot to do with the special teams, the way that it's going to be now, because you look at the number of defensive backs that we have. We have 5 safeties, and I think 6. We have 11 total defensive backs, 6 cornerbacks, and 5 safeties on the roster, and we have 6 receivers. So, you know, you're seeing, I guess, the new way of special teams is going to be a lot more defensive backs, a lot more receivers running down kicks, and less defensive linemen, linebackers, which explains the Nate Stupar cut, less running backs out there. It's going to be a lot smaller and faster guys going down. So I guess JT Gray must have made some great plays in preseason. I just don't recall seeing it.
They had to have been made during the commercial break.
A surprise. I mean, I really now, you know, honestly, I watched the preseason games with doing other stuff, looking up at the TV occasionally to see what was going on. I didn't watch it very closely.
I did too, and I still don't know who JT Gray is.
Yeah. You know, and Jamerson was a surprise because I had Jamerson from the beginning making this team. I thought PJ Williams would have been cut first before Jamerson, but I think too. The staff felt like, okay, we've invested so much time in PJ Williams. He has actually started for us. He can play as a dime back. He can play in a pinch if someone gets hurt as a starting cornerback. We know what we have with him. We're going to start at ground zero with Jamerson. So they cut him. No doubt with the intention we're going to try and get him through waivers and get him on the practice squad. And clearly it didn't happen. The Colts claimed him. Same thing with Camille Moore. Same thing with who was the other one? Oh, Muhammad, defensive end from 2017 draft, a sixth round pick. And that's the story of the sixth round for the Saints. It just is. I mean, just go down the list and you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, he was so I think the Saints were hoping he would squeeze through waivers and they could grab him and put him on the practice squad. But, that was one of those cuts they were talking about that was going to be tough to get rid of somebody because you knew he probably would get picked up, and Jamerson fits that bill. Jonathan Williams, we talked about this via messages. I thought that run for the touchdown against the Rams, Williams kept trying to go to the end and hit the pylon instead of just lowering his shoulder and run that dude over and get in the end zone. I think that was the final straw for Sean Payton. And then he drops the 2-point conversion, which I kind of thought he had it, but he didn't have a good grasp on it on replay. I think those are the final straws for Sean Payton as far as Jonathan Williams. If you watch in the preseason games against Jacksonville and against the Chargers, he ran harder against the third string guys than he did against the Cardinals first and second stringers when they put him in the first half of those games. He got stuffed for a lot of runs, and I know he struggled with pass blocking, and the Saints were kind of like, you know what? I don't feel comfortable with him in the starting lineup against any regular season team, Tampa, Atlanta, whomever. I don't feel comfortable having him in there. So they cut him with the idea of picking up somebody else, and that's who they got, the Patriots running back.
You got to look at it for what it is. They needed Jonathan Williams to be the in between the tackles ground gainer, the tough yards up the middle, and he was inconsistent at best. As you said, it was almost as if he picked his spots where he was going to run hard, where he was going to put forth that extra effort, when he was going to lower that shoulder and get that those points, and that ultimately cost him. I think that also entering into it is the fact that you have a draft pick, not a free agent signee. You have someone that you've invested a draft pick in Boston Scott, that's going to give you the added dimension of possibly being a special teams contributor, as we were talking about before. I think that enters into it. You're not going to, you just got to look at the physics of it. You're not going to use a 5'6" running back to run in between the tackles in the National Football League against ones. You're just not going to do it. Boston Scott is as talented as I've seen come out of the draft in a long time. He is not going to run up in the middle of that Los Angeles Rams defense and get you what a Mark Ingram, what an Alvin Kamara was going to give you. Now, that being said, you look back, the player he's most often compared to, your Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles didn't give you that consistency from tackle to tackle either. But Darren Sproles made enough big plays in the passing game and on the perimeter where he made that pay off, if you will. And I believe the same for Boston Scott. Boston Scott has a contribution to make to this team. He is very talented. He's quick. He's agile.
He lowers his shoulder. He lowers his shoulder and runs over people. You get him in space, and you get a pass to him in space. He's going to fight for that extra yardage, and that's what Sean Payton liked. And it didn't matter who he was playing against. When he came into the game, he ran just as hard against second teamers than he did against the third and fourth teamers. And that's what he was looking for out of Jonathan Williams. He did not see it. So, yeah.
You know why he does that, right?
Because he went to La Tech.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Let us all recognize.
Yeah.
Forever Blue, baby.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, now that plug is over. Anyway, seriously, me personally, Boston Scott gives you a better, in my opinion, Boston Scott's going to give you more of what you pay for than Jonathan Williams would have been able to.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes down to that very thing.
Yeah.
Who is going when you only have 53 roster positions available for 90 players? It's going to a perfect example is the guy we were discussing a while ago, Taysom Hill. You're covering 2 roster spots with Taysom Hill. You get a standout special teams player that can take snaps in an emergency situation. Same thing 2 years ago. A lot of people don't know this. The emergency backup quarterback, if something had happened to Drew and Luke McCown had got hurt, the next man up to take snaps was Willie Snead.
Yeah.
He was a wide receiver that gave you an emergency quarterback. Same thing for Taysom Hill. Until Teddy Bridgewater becomes acclimated with this offense well enough to be comfortable to put into a game.
Mm-hmm.
Doomsday scenario, we played Tampa Bay Sunday. Drew dislocates a finger throwing a pass in the first. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud.
Knock on fiberboard here.
Yeah, please knock on the fiberboard. Worst case scenario, it's going to be maybe
Benny Hill music, yakety sax time. If something like that happens,
it's going to be maybe a month at best before Bridgewater is comfortable enough and the offense is brought down to a level that he can translate it.
And that's not to say Bridgewater's dumb.
No,
we're not saying that.
This is a very complicated offense.
The verbiage alone is very complicated.
This is a very complicated offense for you to be the one sitting there with a headset. The reason that Breeze does it with such ease is this is his 12th year to do it.
Breeze knows the game plan so well that when Peyton starts to say a play, Breeze is already finishing in his head. He already knows exactly what it is they're going to run.
Yeah.
And he knows what to expect out of it. You take the Atlanta Falcons game, the first game, they showed this when they broke down the film. When they watched that game and they ran a certain route combination, they noticed the safety kicking over to cover Michael Thomas. So in the rematch game, they said, you know what? When that safety kicked over to cover Michael Thomas, they completely ignored Ted Ginn Jr. cutting across the middle and running that corner post route almost. They completely ignored him. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that same formation, run that play, and instead of trying to get it to Michael Thomas, we're going to get it to Ted Ginn Jr. as he's cutting across because safety's going to vacate that area. He's going to be wide open and no chance for the cornerback to get the ball. So what happened right before halftime in the Dome against the Falcons? They run that play. Drew knew it the minute he took that snap. He could see that safety coming. He said, oh, this is a touchdown, easy. Throws, hits Ginn in stride. Ginn scores a touchdown. That's the touchdown they score right before halftime. That's the kind of, from Sean and Drew working together for so long and understanding that mindset of attack. This is what, if we see this, go to this. If they do this, you should go to that. That takes time. And that's not a knock on Bridgewater. It would take time for any quarterback to understand that.
Absolutely. I take.
That's
Let me say this: I take absolutely nothing away from, as you alluded to earlier. Teddy Bridgewater took the Vikings to an 11-5 season. Now, I don't
mhm.
care if he was a game manager, if he was throwing it all over the building. You won 11 games and took your team to the playoffs. That is notable and noteworthy. Uh, and just for the record, and I'll probably catch flack for saying this, I would take Teddy Bridgewater every day of the week and twice on Sundays over a Lamar Jackson, which it looked a whole lot like they were about to do.
When they were talking that stuff up, because I watched the draft on NFL Network because ESPN is just unwatchable now. It really is. This is the first draft I watched on NFL Network. I was like cringing. I was going, "Oh God, please no, please
When
no."
when the when the sign came up on the screen that said Saints trade up, I poured a shot of tequila. I said, "Oh my God, we got a quarterback." Oh no!
No,
And when
I
they
was like, I was going through the list of players that was still on the board that I wanted over Lamar Jackson, and Davenport was one of them. I was just going down the list of these players. I'm like going, oh God, if we traded up to get a quarterback who won't even play, who shouldn't play, I'm gonna be furious. And the more they kept talking about it, I'm like, oh shit. Stop already.
everybody wanted us to take Lamar Jackson,
And I
and
feel like that. I feel that same the day after. I felt that same pressure from the sports reporters about Teddy Bridgewater. It was like, oh, what a great landing place. The
yeah,
Saints are the most logical choice. Also, I said, it's almost like there was a mantra going on out there that we have to get a place for this guy. Teddy Bridgewater has to go to a team where he can be successful. And I'm like, what the hell? Why do you care? It's you're a reporter. You're not supposed to be rooting for players. You're a reporter. It doesn't matter where a guy goes. Khalil Mack leaves the Raiders and goes to the Bears. I don't care. I don't care if he succeeds or fails. He didn't come to us. So, why do you feel this need to? And I felt this way even when Drew Brees was playing for us, how they kept going, what if Drew Brees would have gone to Miami? What would have happened with the Dolphins? I'm like, why are you doing this story? Who cares? What if my aunt had nuts? She'd be my uncle. That's about how much sense these stories made. I mean, it's just it was absurd. They never sat there and said, came up with a scenario. What if I don't know? What if the Pittsburgh Steelers had drafted Dan Marino? Because they had the opportunity to draft Dan Marino, but they didn't. You'd have gone from Terry Bradshaw to Dan Marino because Bradshaw, by 1983, his elbow was shot. So that was the real opportunity. And the Steelers took, unfortunately, they passed to Marino, took a defensive lineman who unfortunately was killed in a car accident that later that year. But yeah, that was that possibility that the Steelers, Chuck Noll could have gone from Bradshaw to Marino, and he had Johnny Stallworth still to throw to. But you would have had a lot more success instead of what they ended up having. They had.
And just for the record, Marino went to the Super Bowl the following season too.
Yeah, by beating the Steelers.
Yeah.
He beat the Steelers in the playoffs. But the Steelers, to their defense, said, well, we just drafted Mark Malone 2 years before that, and we have Malone as our starter. And you saw how well that worked out. You went from Malone to Bubby Brister to Mike Tomczak. They've gone all over the place. It took Neil O'Donnell 20 years to take him to the Super Bowl again after that trade. So, or 10 years. Sorry, 10 years. I forgot. It was 95, not so it was from 83 to 95. But
And
Chuck
of
Noll
all
already
people,
retired
for
by that
them to
point.
lose the Super Bowl to, it was the Dallas Cowboys.
Neil O'Donnell blew that game by throwing passes directly to
Washington.
Larry. Yeah, not
James
Mark
Washington.
Washington. No, it was Larry. Oh, come
Oh,
on.
God.
No,
Larry
Larry Brown. Larry Brown is banner now.
Brown.
Yes, threw it right to him twice. No, Washington was in the 70s. Washington had Mark Washington had the task of covering Lynn Swann in Super Bowl 10. And Benny Barnes got that in Super Bowl 13 to cover Lynn Swann. But anyway.
And both of them made Lynn Swann famous.
Yes. Lynn Swann looks very famous going up against those guys.
But anyway.
My point was, before we got into the whole thing, was, what was the whole point of, I don't know, feeling like this pressure that you had to draft Lamar Jackson, this pressure that you had to trade for Teddy Bridgewater. What was behind all this? I don't get this. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I do. I get it completely, and I'm going to choose to not get into that on this platform. I will, however, say that there is a definite agenda by the mainstream media, and that's what that was about. And
that's unfortunate.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
That's unfortunate, because you're denigrating those players as players because you're trying to fulfill some absurd, ideological, cultural, whatever.
Well, when you get into that, it transcends sports, and it goes into something that has absolutely nothing to do with sports.
Well, it's what's killing sports.
Absolutely.
That's why people have been tuning out. And I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about a boycott. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about people who are just frustrated because all this noise that surrounds. I shared a video the other day from Saturday, West Virginia versus Tennessee. And, they're playing Country Roads, a John Denver song from over 40 years ago. And 80 to 100,000 people were singing Country Roads. This is, and not just singing the chorus, they're singing the lyrics. Okay. And, I would bet to say that the average age of that person has that song is older than the median age of the person that was in that crowd. Okay. And yet they're all singing this as one. And we've talked about this before. That noise that surrounds sports, whether it's what you were referencing in the beginning of the show, about an ad campaign, whether it's, the media's manipulation of what they want a quarterback in the NFL to look like, and all that other stuff. When the Saints when the Saints went to the Super Bowl, when after that kick was made, okay, that for that moment, you have strangers hugging you. It's we won the game. When Tracy Porter picks off Peyton Manning for that touchdown to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, to really put the game away. It's we won that. And the weeks after the Super Bowl, that Big Raw and everything else, they all wore a jersey like this everywhere they went, because it wasn't about whose jersey it was about a Saints jersey. Okay. That's what sports does to people. It gets away all those barriers and says, you know what, for 3 hours or 4 hours, or however long the game is, we are all one. We are Marshall. We are all one. Okay. And what we've seen now, and this is the unfortunate thing, and this is why people are tuning it out, is we're seeing divisions coming in there, trying to break that up. You have to look at people as this, and you have to see sports as this, and this is what it's got to represent for this. And so for some people, it's like, it doesn't. I don't recognize that. That doesn't mean anything to me. Okay. You've got, let's just say it, the flag. Okay. Some people say, well, we're taking a stand against oppression. For other people, it's like, but you're disrespecting the flag. Who's right? Guess what? They're both right, because it's about what you think. It's about what you feel. Okay. It's, for this person here, like, I've had people say, well, I'm an Army vet, so, I fought for your right to kneel if you want to. And I can say, well, my dad fought too, and he finds it disrespectful. Who's right? Nobody's right. Nobody has the truth. Nobody has the ultimate say on knowledge or truth when it comes to this. So that's what's wrong, because now you've got two people who probably during a game, after every touchdown or first down, you're slapping hands and you're won. I've always said that part of the reason why New Orleans never went through what Selma, Alabama went through and what Birmingham went through and all the stuff during the civil rights movement is because Saints football was so important to people. Football in general was so important to people that, when they got embarrassed by the 65 All-Star game getting canceled and moved to Houston, and they had a chance not to get an AFL team, and they had a realistic possibility of never getting an NFL team, people kind of pushed that aside. You know what? If we want an NFL team, we got to stop all that crap. And we've got to unite and get together and become one. So for 3 hours, we can put away all those divisions. And, it seems like people are trying to reverse that now by putting divisions up. And I'm not blaming anyone. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that noise that is outside the world that you want to get away from is slowly creeping its way back in. So it infects everything. It infects your movies, it infects your music, it infects your sports. Social media is full of it. You can't get away from that stuff. And it makes people angry and resentful. It's divisive. And it's a shame. It really is. And I think that's what's really getting lost in sports now. All right. I'm off my soapbox. I'm sorry. That went way beyond my where I was trying to get to, but I just need to say that.
I think I really and truly that blows me away. And I truly, not even from a sports perspective, from a personal level, I respect everything that you just said. Sports is supposed to be something that brings us together. I've been in that Superdome when the Saints were rolling and they were just sidewalk stomping the Carolina Panthers or the Atlanta. Well, I've only been to one Atlanta Falcons game, and it didn't quite fit that bill. But I have been there to see them choke slam the Panthers. And white, black, Hispanic, every possible different demographic that you could possibly think of. They're not sitting there in their own little corners they're all standing there arm in arm talking about not this. It's all we that. Mm-hmm. And that's what sports is supposed to be about. Unfortunately, as per the position that I have doing this show, as does Alan, sometimes we have to be critical of this player or that player. And I can guarantee you with every fiber of being inside of me that has absolutely nothing to do with race, creed, nationality, anything, any of those. The only thing that it has to do with is what they do on that football field. My evaluation, as well, we're here. I'm going to go. My evaluation of Colin Kaepernick as a quarterback has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he's black, with the fact that he knelt on the sideline. It has to do with what he did when he was on the field. And I stand by that. My evaluation of Eric Reed as a player is just that. But you have to deal in the reality. And the reality is that this is a business. You do stuff to turn off the consumer, and you're not going to be in business very long. And the National
Right.
Football League has had enough of this, and they're going to snuff it out. And don't
Well,
ever think that the National Football League doesn't have the money and the resources to invest. And if you don't think so, look at the whole CTE thing and
well,
Dr. Bennett Amalu and all the efforts that were made to silence him. And we just got way off into left field where
yeah.
we both swore we were never going to go.
Well, like I always tell people, I said, I know what my political and social beliefs are, and if I let entertainment shape my political and social beliefs or influence my tastes on social and political beliefs, I wouldn't be watching anything. I wouldn't be listening to any kind of music because, you know, Don Henley and I, for example, could never share any politics, but I think he's one of the greatest songwriters and one of the best musicians in the world. It's just, but I don't agree with his politics. I respect the man, and I will give him all the credit in the world for his Walden Woods project and all the things he does. But Don and I will never see eye to eye on politics. That's fine. I don't care. I like your music. And you know what? When I go to an Eagles concert, or when I went to an Eagles concert, I should say, and I went to a Don Henley solo concert, I was there with, the 20,000 people maybe for the Henley concert and the 60,000 people who went to the Eagles concert. I was there singing the songs with all those people just as loudly as Henley was. So, and that's what matters to me. That's why I'm there. I'm there because I want to be in a room with all these people singing Desperado or, Hotel California, whatever, people right now younger than us going, Don Henley, who the hell is Don Henley?
Desperado, he's talking about country music.
No, Desperado, we're doing Seinfeld references. Shh, Desperado. He's out riding fences. Anyway, that's what I mean by entertainment. I enjoy that feeling of unity that you have at a sporting event, at a concert, wherever, that we're now all one. It's what we have in common that we focus on for those 3 hours. Okay. Not what made us different. The fact I live here and you live there is irrelevant because for 3 hours, we're here together to cheer a team on. And that's what matters.
I think that it's really, what's the word I'm looking for, alarming that nowadays there's 10 times the effort to find the things that separate us than there is the effort made looking for what unites us and what brings us together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
it's not going to end well.
You're barraged on a daily basis on Facebook, Twitter, on all these different social media platforms telling you reasons to be pissed off at somebody else.
Yeah. And it doesn't end well.
No, it never ends well. This has been going on as long as there's been history. No, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't all these things before, but there's always going to be somebody that benefits from telling you to be mad at somebody else. Think for yourselves. The worst, in my opinion, the worst thing in sports in the past quarter century, I'll say, has been ESPN. Now, before everybody gets pissed off at me and starts sending me negative and threatening information and mail, the reason that I say that is you are barraged constantly by ESPN telling you what to think, telling you what to believe, telling you what you should think about this guy or that guy, not leaving you any room whatsoever to think for yourself. I I'm a I'm a huge Drew Brees fan, but I can sit here and give you a 30-minute dissertation on why I respect Drew Brees and his game. I don't like Tom Brady. Same thing. I can sit here for half an hour and explain to you why I don't like Tom Brady. But it's not because I watched Sports Center last night and they told me that I should like Tom Brady and that Drew Brees is not as good as Tom Brady. And that's why I have absolutely no respect for ESPN. They they sit there and they beat you over the head by these former jocks that have an axe to grind. You look at all of ESPN, and quite honestly, NFL Network is following the same template laid down by ESPN.
Yes.
Every show that they have, they're going to have a former jock, a quote unquote, and I use this term loosely, journalist, a female with long hair and a low cut blouse and a squeaky voice, and that's your demographics covered on all fronts right there. Think for yourselves, decide for yourselves, learn for yourselves. Okay, I'm off of my soapbox now.
Well, well, yes, the problem is it's no longer about sports. It's about everything else. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's cheaper to make talk shows and cheaper to make your own original programming than it is to subscribe or pay contracts for sporting events. We're going way out in left field, but I'm old enough to have watched ESPN when it had a whole lot of nothing on. And
when you could see badminton and you could see lacrosse.
no,
and
I'm talking about dudes throwing logs, for a championship.
the caber toss. And I
Yeah.
never would have known that if I hadn't watched
Yeah,
ESPN in the early days.
guys who were having competitions who could run the fastest on a log floating in a river, and the other guy before the other guy falls off. Yeah, and they're going back and forth the whole time. That's the kind of programming ESPN had on.
Who can pull a double-decker bus with their teeth?
Yeah, that world's strongest man, and they used to have that kind of stuff. And before ESPN2, when ESPN2 was supposed to be the edgy version, and what they had was, that's how I was exposed to the CFL. That's how I was exposed to the USFL. That's that's how I got to see Australian rules football, which I thought that was insane what they were doing then. Clotheslining people. We used to call that tackle the man with the ball, but they called it Australian rules football. No pads, no equipment, just go out there and kill somebody. And shirts against skins. That's what it looks like out there. Rugby. I saw rugby on there. That's how I learned the rules of rugby. But what's happened over the years, that costs money now to get the rights to broadcast that stuff. So it's cheaper, as accountants think, it's cheaper for us to fill airtime with original programming. And that's what NFL Network is doing now, because I don't watch NFL Network hardly at all, because there's nothing for NFL films anymore. You don't see the NFL films, the old specials and stuff like that. I used to love during the NFL season, after prime time, the second prime time came on 11 or 10 o'clock Eastern time on Central Time, from like 11 till 2 in the morning. They used to show old NFL films footage of, the greatest tackles, or, profiles on players and things like that, specials that they had done. And that's when ESPN would show that stuff. All that's gone, all of it. It's now filled up with NFL Live and NFL, their own version of NFL Prime Time, and Baseball Tonight, and This Week in Basketball, and all the stuff that, like you said, it's basically guys standing around talking about the current players and the current stuff. So people get sick of it. It's a saturation point. People are just tired of looking at that stuff. They want to see something different, and it's a shame. It really is. And ESPN is killing it. And NFL Network is following suit, following that same predictable programming that there's just nothing to watch on the channel anymore.
Unfortunately, we live in a generation now where people aren't able or willing to invest the time to develop their own ideas, to develop their own beliefs, and it's just much easier to tune in and have someone tell you what you think and what you believe, and it's, I think it's sad. We want to thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
To take part in our sermons. And we want to invite everyone to join us Saturday night. We have 2 big expanded format shows during the course of the year, and oddly enough, they're separated by 6 months. How did we do that? It's the season kickoff show. This will be our 3rd one, and actually, this will be our very first one to actually have a special guest of a former Saints player, in Jolan Dunbar. That'll start 7 p.m. Central Time on Saturday night. And we also want to invite you guys to join Alan and I and our brother from another mother, Bob Rose, tomorrow night on the Bayou Blitz at 7. The show starts at 7. We'll be on at some point after 7.
Yes. It's 6 o'clock his time.
Really?
Because he's Eastern. Yeah. So it might be 8 o'clock our time. If it's 7 o'clock his time, it may be 8 o'clock our time.
No, I do believe that he does everything via Central Time because that's local.
Come on. Let me look here and make sure.
Okay, well, while you do that, we want to thank everyone.
I am doing it right now. Yeah. I'm doing it right now. Hang on here. Let's see. Good Lord. He's got a bunch of junk on here. Okay. That's us. Okay. Join us this Wednesday of our first annual Bayou Blitz season kickoff, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central.
Yeah, so. You had him an hour. He would have been Mountain Time.
No.
You had him an hour
that's
before.
True. That's true. Yeah, what I'm thinking of. That's right. You're right. Never mind. That's what happens when I'm reading at the same time you're talking.
Yeah, well, I tend to put people to sleep from time to time. You never know with me. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We hope you all join us Saturday night for our season kickoff special. Once again, we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to everyone, including my esteemed colleague there in the path of this storm. Get your floaties ready. Styrofoam is good. Lead is bad. Seriously, our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in the wake of.
Absolutely.
Does the storm even have a name yet?
Yes, Gordon. It's still a tropical storm. It may get to Hurricane 1 status before it gets on shore, but that's unlikely. But it looks like it's going to be coming right over Biloxi, the Biloxi area. Biloxi, either that or the Mississippi-Alabama border. And it's going to be cutting across the state, heading towards Louisiana, North Louisiana. So you'll get some of it. But
well, I feel for our man Jerry, our chief of security. He's in Gulfport. Jerry, man, stay low, or unless the water starts rising, then get high.
Yeah.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you, brother. Let us know you're staying safe and you're staying dry.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you Saturday night, 7 o'clock, correct?
Yes, sir.
7 o'clock Saturday night. That is Central Time.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
have Jolan Dunbar on, and then we'll do our roundtable. And by that time, Thursday night's the first game, so Atlanta will have already taken an L. by the time we go live on Saturday night. So
remind me, I've got to send you that meme of the Falcons preseason.
Yeah, so I heard a stat the other day on the radio. It said no team that's gone 0-4 in the preseason has ever won the Super Bowl. So there you go. 2 strikes against Atlanta because no home teams ever hosted a Super Bowl either. So we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. See you Saturday night, everybody. Good night.
Love you guys.